Maybe could you do me a favor?
Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, everyone. So here, Adam.
Morning.
Good morning. How are you doing this morning?
Doing well.
Fantastic.
Good morning.
Hey, Adam, I just made you co-host.
Okay.
And let's see here. I apologize for not getting in 5 minutes early, guys. I just wrapped up another call. And I am going to take 2 minutes, a 2-minute escape.
Hey, good morning, everybody. While Jim's getting ready.
Hey, good morning, Bruce.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Everybody, how's it going? Very quiet. Hey, Adam.
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Hey, what's up?
So, Mike, is your hair still going to go growing back?
What's that?
Is your hair going to start growing back now that you closed?
No, I lost it during basic training, man. Here you go.
Nice.
I'm here to help.
Hi, Susie. How are you?
Hi, Bernadette. How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
Good.
Where is everybody calling in from today? How about a roll call?
New York City.
Austin, Texas.
New York City.
New York City.
Detroit.
Los Angeles, California.
Austin, Texas.
Cambridge, England.
Nice.
Virginia.
California.
Sunny and beautiful. Oh, sunny and beautiful Florida.
Hey, Mark, I think your audio's jacked up a little bit.
Yeah, your audio is definitely messed up.
How does this now?
Still messed up. Sound like you're being put through a shredder.
Yeah, you sound like C3PO.
Yeah. So Adam, I think that you know, anytime you want to get started, we can go ahead, and I'll continue to let people in as they come into the room.
That sounds good, Jim.
And I'll you know, I don't typically make a big introduction because no one can tell us as much about you as you, and so I like to give you the opportunity to tell us what you want about you know, about your background and your introduction. I know that today we're going to be talking about you know, wealth and how to, you know, how to extend it, expand it, create it, and with that, Adam, we're very, very grateful that you're with us today on the GOB Network's monthly meetup, and I'll give it to you.
Thank you, Jim. I think it's a privilege to be here, and thank you everybody for carving out some time on your Sunday to come get acquainted and hear about something that might be some new information to help you do what you're already going to do, build wealth through real estate, but maybe even be able to do it better. And so that's my goal, is what we'll talk about today, is a capital strategy specifically for real estate investors. Quick background on me, and I will make it quick. I'm a real estate investor, have been since 2011. I was a police officer for 16 years, and it was while I was trying to find my way out of that career that I came across real estate as a way to build wealth, and started that in 2011 and have been doing it since. I started with wholesaling, then single family rentals in my home market of Kansas City, and then transitioned to multifamily, and I'm a limited partner in a multifamily investment here in Kansas City. We have a 52 unit property in Lee Summit, Missouri. So I'm looking to do more deals like that. I absolutely love being a passive investor in real estate. I think it's phenomenal. I did switch careers out of law enforcement about 3.5 years ago now, and got into being a full-time wealth advisor, which is what I do at a firm here in Kansas City called Prevail Innovative Wealth Strategies. And what makes us different, because there's a lot of wealth advisory firms out there, we believe traditional financial planning is broken. We believe it takes control away from clients, and it does not position people well in regards to taxes, future tax rates, having control over their income, and having control and liquidity over their money today. And so my goal is to, and our goal at Prevail Innovative Wealth Strategies is to provide people an education and information that maybe they're not getting from traditional financial planners about how can you maintain liquidity right now in your working years, not having to wait till retirement to have access to your money. How can you insulate yourself from any hike in future tax rates? And how can you protect yourself from downside loss in the markets, from creditors, those types of things? So the strategy we're going to talk about today speaks to all of those things. And so I do have a PowerPoint, but I don't want to spend the whole time on that. I'd rather make this more of a conversation. The one thing that I would ask, and I'm going to try to kind of monitor the chat, and I'm sure Jim will too. The one thing I would ask is that we'll try not to take any rabbit trails and get distracted from the main overall concept. If you want to have an offline conversation, I love to do those. So if we want to get into the weeds on a particular aspect of this strategy, we can do that. But I would just ask for the group's sake that we'll try to keep it high level in the meeting today. And then I'm going to try to keep my time, Jim and I have talked about this, to 30 minutes or less. And then Jim, I'll kind of hand it back over to you at that point for whatever your guys' usual format is. Does that sound good?
Sounds great, Adam. And just to encourage everyone that we will have a few breakout rooms after Adam's presentation, and also would encourage everyone to be ready to put their contact information in the chat so that we can all network together. But having said that, I would like for everyone to wait until after the presentation to put your information in the chat so that we can reserve the chat for questions, particularly to the presentation, so that they don't get lost. All right, Adam.
Awesome. Well, let's get rolling. And again, what I said I wanted to talk about today with you is capital strategy. So I know for the real estate investing that you're doing, you already have a strategy, right? There's a strategy for what's the right property profile, what's the ideal return, what are we trying to build in the next 12 months, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. But I also wanted to ask you, do you have a capital strategy? In other words, what do you do with your cash? What do you do with your cash when it's waiting between deals so that you have liquidity, so that you're protected against downside loss, so you don't, lose some of that cash position? How does that cash position relate to tax rates? And when you choose to deploy your cash, is there any opportunity cost to do that? And if so, is there a way to reduce that opportunity cost or maybe eliminate it completely? And then finally, I would point out, because when I meet with business owners who are my clients, and your business is real estate, but any business owner, what I find is whatever business they're involved in, that's where they earn their greatest returns. So for you all, that's your real estate business. That's where you're going to get the greatest returns, the greatest accumulation of wealth. And the thing that happens just by nature of being a successful business owner is you end up having your wealth concentrated within that business. And that can be a blind spot. And so, you know, I always like to, I think it's not the things we know that are going to be problematic for us. It's the things we didn't think about. It's the blind spots. And so capital strategy is one of those things. I think sometimes we get so focused on the deals we're trying to do and the wealth we're building through what's going well in our business that we can totally ignore capital strategy. And why I think that is important is because, and I'm an abundance mindset. Let me put this out there before I say what I'm about to say, but there's a fixed amount of dollars that every one of us is going to have pass through our hands during our lifetime. Okay. Whatever that number is, whether it's $1 million, 10 million, whatever. And when you think about the concept of stewardship or just being wise with your money, you're going to put those dollars to use one way or another. And depending on the decisions you make and how you put them to use is going to affect your bottom line or your net result. And so if that's the case, you know, why don't we look at, as we're looking at our investment strategy and our capital strategy, trying to optimize doing the most that we can with those dollars, maximize the use of everyone that passes through our hands. And so my goal today is 3 things. So if you are taking notes or just mentally, if you want to jot this down, 3 things I really want to address when it comes to capital strategy. Is your current capital protected against market risk or market downside? And are you insulated from rising tax rates? That's number 1. Number 2 is, when you deploy capital, is it costing you money to interrupt the compounding growth of that capital account every time you take it out of whatever account it's sitting in? And then number 3, are you over concentrated within your business where a single lawsuit, a single black swan event, some sort of unknown that we haven't thought of or we couldn't know about, that a single event like that could wipe you out? Those are the 3 things that I want to address. And so I'll start on the insulating from market risk and rising tax rates. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'll share my screen with you guys. Give me just a second to pull this up. So from a tax perspective, there are really only 3 places in America that we can put cash from a tax perspective. There's our taxable account. And I would bet, not knowing anybody that's on the call today, well, I know a few of you, but not knowing your personal balance sheets, that most of you, probably the cash that you want to have liquid ready for the next deal, most of you are storing the majority of that in this bucket. We call it the taxable bucket. Savings accounts, checking accounts, brokerage accounts. And the reason we do that is because that money is liquid and it's easy to get to, and we can transact, you know, quickly, right? If a deal comes up and you need to close quickly, you have access to your cash here. And then the next place where I would say is probably the most common, and so if what I just said doesn't apply to you, then I would bet the next place is you're storing your capital within a tax deferred bucket. So that would be your 401k, a traditional IRA, any type of retirement plan you can think of, 403b pensions, all those things. And so this is the type of account, as you guys know, you make 100 grand this year. If you put 10 grand in this bucket, you're only going to be taxed on 90 grand this year. And at some point down the road in the future, you're going to have to pay taxes later on that money and on any gains. So when we think about capital strategy, what I find with all of the clients that I work for is it seems to just be the norm that everybody's got 80% or more of all of their wealth tied up within these first 2 categories or first 2 buckets. And the reason that I think that's concerning, and the reason, and this is a result, again, of traditional financial planning and the options that are presented to us by default. These are what we go to. You know, it's your employer, that's what they offer you as a tax deferred account. And when people think about transacting cash, they go to, you know, savings and checking accounts, brokerage accounts. But the problem that I see here, or the blind spot that I see here, is, let me just ask you guys, and this is a great one for the chat. If you were to just gamble on where tax rates will be 10 years from now, 20 years from now, do you think it's more likely that they'll be lower or higher? And I see chats coming in, so I'm just curious to see what people are saying. Up, 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 higher, and higher. I'm in agreement with all of those. Bruce thinks higher as well. And nobody has a crystal ball, and I get that. So maybe we're not right. But the fact that our gut tells us, and that all of us, if we had to make a gamble, Rennie's going to go with lower, so that's fine. But if we had to make a gamble, I would say most of the folks in the room would say, yeah, tax rates are likely to go higher. So if they are, and 80% of all that we have accumulated is within these first two buckets, how much control do we have down the line if tax rates go up? How much do we control over what's ours? You know, the question becomes, within these buckets, how much is yours? I saw somebody else said same. Okay, fair enough. So the whole idea is I just want to give myself a little bit more control. So, you know, is there another option for me? Maybe a tax-free bucket. And there is. And of course, one of the first things we think of when we think about tax-free is a Roth IRA, which is a fantastic vehicle, fantastic tool to use. And what's cool about a Roth IRA is you can, once you earn the money and pay taxes on it this year, you can plug it into the Roth IRA, you get tax-free growth, tax-free income, and there are some built-in asset protections just by virtue of it being a retirement account. There are also some downsides or some trade-offs, if you will, to the Roth IRA. And that's that in order to make that account grow, you actually have to take the money in that account and subject it to some downside risk. You have to invest it. You also are limited, like if you make too much money, you can't do Roth contributions in a given year. Yes, I know there's a backdoor Roth as a way to get around that, but bottom line is that the government puts some restrictions on you. You also are limited to contributing $6,000 a year in new contributions. Unless you're 50 or older, then you can do $7,000. And then of course, there's the withdrawal restrictions, right? You can't take out any of the gains till you're 59 and a half unless you want to pay a penalty. And then of course, the IRS knows every dollar we put into this account. So the Roth is a great tool. What a lot of the clients that I work for run into is either they make too much money to make regular contributions, or they're making good money, they qualify to do Roth contributions, they plunk down their $6,000 and it's like, well, what's next? And the other thing is, if I want to take use of that money today and have the benefit of that money today, so not long-term, right? Some of us are doing a self-directed Roth, and long-term, that's going to be very good for us. But if I want to make use of that money today and have free access to it today, this can't be my vehicle of choice. So then it comes to, well, what are the other options? Now, another option, and I'm not going to talk about it a lot in my presentation today, is an HSA. And the reason I'm not going to talk about it is because it's primarily designed for medical expenses. Yes, there's some ways around that. Yes, there's some loopholes, but it's not a great primary way to accumulate tax-free wealth and have use of the money. So the second option, and where we're going to spend the balance of our time, is cash value life insurance as a capital strategy. And the reason for that being is because it can do the same three things that the Roth can do for us, but without any of those trade-offs. Actually, when we deposit money into a cash value life insurance policy that's structured as an asset or as a capital account, we don't have downside risk. The account by itself is productive without us even investing the money. Also, we're not limited. You can earn as much money as you want per year and you're still eligible to make use of this tax-free bucket. There aren't contribution limits like a $6,000 or $7,000 a year limit. There is nobody telling you that you can't take and use your money before age 59 and a half. You don't report anything in this bucket to the IRS. And something that I'm going to walk you through today is even when you use the money within this account to go do your real estate investing, you continue to earn gains within the account through a compounding dividend and a contractually guaranteed upside. I am unaware of any other cash account that allows you all those advantages wrapped into one account. And so that's why it's worth at least looking at and how it may fit into your strategy. Now, the other thing is, I would say this isn't a fit for everybody because a lot of it could be determined by your timeline, how much time we have to work with. This is a long-term strategy. And the other thing is age and health do affect underwriting, obviously, with life insurance. So we're not primarily concerned about the life insurance. We want to take advantage of the tax laws that are within a life insurance account. But we actually have to qualify for life insurance in order to be able to do it, which requires underwriting. Now, the one thing I would say to that is if you're thinking, okay, well, that knocks me out right away because I have diabetes or I have sleep apnea or whatever. The owner of the asset who controls the cash does not necessarily have to be the same as the person who is insured by the policy. So there are some workarounds. All right, so let's get into how this is different than probably what you may be familiar with when we're thinking about traditional life insurance. Little piece of trivia here, there's actually a minimum and maximum amount that you can pay for a given amount of life insurance. So let's just call it $1 million death benefit. And the minimum amount that you pay for that $1 million death benefit is set by the insurance company. It's their competitive pricing within the marketplace. The maximum amount that you can pay for that same $1 million of death benefit, the insurance company has no control over. That number is set by the IRS. And so the question you have to ask yourself is, why would the IRS have any interest in how much money that I'm paying into a life insurance contract for $1 million or whatever it is? Why does the IRS care? They care because there are tax benefits in these types of accounts. So they'll allow you to have it, same as they'll allow you to have a Roth, but they do put a limit on it. They do cap the benefit. And so you have to purchase a certain amount of death benefit for any amount that you would choose to fund this asset. And so that's the trade-off. In other words, you're not going to get sexy double-digit growth returns like you can out of real estate, but at the same time, they will allow you to do it. So let's take a look at what that structure looks like visually. So the limit the IRS puts on any kind of life insurance contract where you're trying to create a capital account that's tax-free, that limit they call as a MEC, or a modified endowment contract. And if you would walk into a normal insurance agency for the purpose of buying life insurance, and you go in there and say, I want $1 million whole life insurance policy that's good for the rest of my life, they're going to build you a policy on that traditional model where it is optimized to buy as much death benefit as possible for the least amount of dollars. And so what you'll end up with is a policy with a whole lot of death benefit and a whole lot of expense for that death benefit, very little to no cash value. What we do is turn that model on its head and say, I want to buy as little death benefit as I can get away with. However much the IRS requires me, I'm going to fund this asset at, whatever it is, $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month. I want to buy as little death benefit as I can, and I want to build as much cash as I can. And so instead of it being a line item expense in my budget for the purpose of buying death benefit, it becomes an asset in my portfolio with the intention of building tax-free liquid cash. Totally, totally different idea. Maximum because UHNWI we're using to avoid paying taxes. So they put a cap on how much you could avoid paying taxes.
That's supposed to be a question, Adam. Is that why they capped this maximum and created an artificial ceiling on the cash value of the life insurance?
Yeah, essentially, and I hate talking interest rates because then people get unfocused, but I am going to put it out there. Essentially what that's going to amount to, the MEC limit's going to basically cap your growth where you'll probably never see more than a 5 to 6% tax-free savings account out of this. And I hate even saying that because then when I say that, people get all honed in on percentages and numbers, but I mean, that's essentially what it amounts to. So I'm not going to spend time going through all the different examples, but the reason that this might be interesting to you is because all these people are interested in this asset as a tax-free asset. Our current president owns 6 of these types of policies, and you notice he listed them under assets and income. It's also a big part of Jim Harbaugh's compensation. I don't know if there's any Michigan fans here or people who hate Michigan, so sorry if that's the case, but just a famous example for you. And then banks happen to be the largest buyers of whole life insurance. And there's 2 reasons for that. Number one, banks have to have something on the balance sheet called Tier 1 capital. In other words, it has to be safe capital that's productive. Whole life insurance accomplishes that. Also, they use it for executive bonuses, because if you can promise somebody a tax-free pension with a guaranteed minimum value and a guaranteed tax-free income stream, they'll make a long-term commitment to you. So banks use it as a discretionary benefit for their highly paid executives.
So Adam, quick question. I have heard that also there are corporations that use this as literally as a secondary source of income for themselves, that they will
Correct.
insure certain individuals within their corporation and they are the beneficiary of that policy. So
Correct.
the death benefit, unlike you buying this for yourself, they're actually putting it on you so that they can get paid. So they believe in the product so much that they're going to use you and your life so that they can get the benefit from it.
Correct. Actually, I'm considering going down a rabbit trail real quick on Harbaugh's compensation. Is there anybody in the group, go ahead and type it in the chat if you are, is there anyone in the group who has employees or business partners, and one of your employees or several of your employees or business partners you could not stand to live without? Like, they are such a huge asset to your business that you do not know what you'd do if they were gone tomorrow. Is there anybody that applies to? Because if so, you'll really get some value out of this. And if not, I'm going to go down the rabbit trail on Harbaugh's compensation because I think it's an incredible tax loophole and you guys should hear this. It's cool. Let's see, what do we have? My wife. Okay, awesome, Mark. You're getting points. Is your wife on here? She should know you said that. I'll tell her for you if you need a witness. All right, so let me tell you guys how the University of Michigan compensates Jim Harbaugh. So he has a portion of his compensation, obviously, that's in cash, just like how the rest of us earn a living. But what they do is they can inflate his income without him having to pay taxes on it. And the way they do that is they loan him, and I forget what the specific number is. I want to say it was $2 million a year. What's it say in the article? And an additional $2 million for the following 5 years to pay the premium of a life insurance policy. Yes. So here's how Jim Harbaugh gets a $2 million bonus that's tax-free every year. The University of Michigan loans him, per a contract that they have, loans him $2 million. Borrowed money is not taxed, right? Because it's a loan, it has to be paid back. They loan him $2 million a year, and that $2 million then funds a life insurance policy, which is a tax-free account, right? So it's building a tax value or a cash value that is tax-free. When he retires, he can then take loans off of that policy, which again, a loan is borrowed money, so it's tax-free, and he will have a tax-free retirement income. The loans that the University of Michigan gave him, that $2 million a year, become due and payable on his death. Well, what does life insurance come with? It comes with a death benefit, and death benefits are tax-free. So when he dies, his death benefit will pay out tax-free back to the University of Michigan. So he will pay back his loans. They won't have any tax to pay on that money, and he won't care because he's not here. And he got to take advantage of the tax-free retirement account along the way. So that's how you can, orchestrate something very unique and something very tax advantaged by using this asset. All right, I'll move on because we want to talk about how this applies to real estate. And if that's interesting and you have a business partner, then, ooh, did I just draw that? Okay. All right, so this is an example. This is actually a client of mine, 40-year-old female real estate investor client here in Kansas City. And what we did was, again, remember what I said at the beginning when I said there's going to be a certain amount of dollars that flows through your hands throughout the course of your life. And it's about where we allocate that and how we use that I think can make a difference. And so for her, there was already $2,000 per month that was coming out of her budget where she was allocating to different places, 401k at work, savings account, brokerage account, number of different places. So we're taking existing cash flows and simply sending them to a different place. And so with that $2,000 a month existing cash flow, she's going to start putting it into this whole life policy that's going to act as her capital account to support her real estate investing. So instead of going in the savings account, instead of over contributing the 401k at work, we're taking those same dollars every month and sending them here. And here's how her capital account grows in 5-year intervals up to age 65. And so if you're doing the math, I want to point something out. What you'll notice is $2,000 a month equals $24,000 a year. After 10 years, if you take 24,000 times 10, that's 240. Well, you'll notice 10 years into this, her liquidity actually isn't quite 240. It's 217,437. So this is one of the things to point out about this asset is you don't have 100% liquidity from day one. Where you get that 100% liquidity can come in year 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It really just depends on your underwriting, your pricing, and your structure of your policy. So that is important to know. There is a cost built into this, just as there is any asset. With a brokerage account, you may be paying money management commissions, or you may be paying loads on your mutual funds. With real estate, you pay commissions when you buy and sell property, and you pay property taxes along the way. You have expenses to keep the property up. With life insurance, you have cost of insurance expense. So it's just important to understand there is a cost built into this asset. Now, the flip side of that is, if you do the math, by age 65, she's put 600,000 into this, but she now has liquidity of 932, 998. So there is a turning point at where you have more money in than you ever put in, but it is a long-term asset. So it's important to understand that, I think, because that's one of the factors for you to evaluate, is this or is this not a fit for me and my strategy? But she's building this along the way. If she would put the money in and just let it bake and never use it, here's your account values at all these different points along the way. Now we're going to put this money to use because after all, she's a real estate investor and this is the capital account. So let's just say at age 45, from that 82, almost 83,000, she takes a policy loan of, let's say, 50,000. And she does a single family home deal. So depending on where you're at, that 50,000 could buy you a whole property, or maybe it's just a down payment. But either way, she deploys it out of her capital account, goes into the single family home deal, the property cash flows. Maybe she does a cash out refinance down the line, or maybe she flips the property, puts the money back once she does the refinance or makes the sale. Same as you would do if you were using a brokerage account or a savings account. You're going to put the money back once you collect your profits, and you're going to wait for the next deal. 5 years later, she's got 217,000 available. So she leverages a policy loan for 100,000, and maybe this time it's a fourplex deal. So she's scaling up. Again, through property cash flows or maybe a refinance or a sale, we put that money back. It might be 12 months from now, it might be 5 years from now, but eventually we put the money back. Then at age 55, she has about 395,000. So let's say she's going to leverage out 250 and do what I did just a couple of years ago when I switched over to multifamily. Maybe that's a syndication deal on some apartments. So now she's got 250 in some apartments. And again, at some point down the way, there's an exit plan, whether that's a cash out refinance, a sale, or otherwise. And so eventually she puts the 250,000 back. So by age 65, assuming she's leveraged, what have we leveraged here? 251. So we've leveraged $400,000 along the way. Now we're getting towards retirement age. At age 65, guess what? We still have 932, 998. And the reason for that is the unique characteristic of this asset is it continues to earn a dividend and compound the interest and grow even when you leverage the dollars out and use them. So it did not negatively affect her bottom line at age 65 that she had leveraged out the $400,000 along the way. So whether you put the money in and you let it bake and you don't touch it, or whether you put the money in and you leverage it out several times over during the course of your working life, once you get to retirement age, as long as you've paid yourself back over time, it's as though you never used the money. There's no opportunity cost for leveraging that capital. And let's not forget, we did what we were going to do anyway. We built a real estate portfolio. So now, instead of only having the real estate portfolio and having that wealth concentration risk within our portfolio all by itself, we also have a whole other tax-free bucket of wealth over here in addition to. It is an asset in and of itself. So my finishing point, if we're going to call it age 65, is I built a portfolio along the way, but I did it with my own capital account instead of a creditor. And I now have to show for that a tax-free retirement account that goes alongside my real estate holdings. So let me show you what that looks like if we convert that to retirement income. So that's just demonstrating we've got the asset on top of the portfolio we built. So we put in 600,000 of contributions to this account from age 40 to 65. If she wanted to, she could take a pension style tax-free income from age 71 to 90 of almost 86,000 a year, which amounts to about 1.6 million in tax-free income age 71 to 90. Now, while 86,000 a year may not sound impressive to you, keep in mind, if this was in a 401k or an IRA and we were taking it out as taxable distributions at a 24% tax bracket, I'd have to take out almost 113 grand to net the same amount of money that she's able to take out. And at the end of the line, let's just say at age 90, she happens to pass away. There is still a tax-free death benefit attached to the policy of $915,000 remaining. So she took that 1.6 million out. She never put it back. There was still enough of a death benefit remaining to also leave a tax-free legacy. So when you look at money in versus money out, over the course of 25 years, she put in 600,000. She leveraged 400 of it to build a real estate portfolio that's worth who knows how much and produces income every month. And on top of that, she could take tax-free income from this asset. So I did think it would be good, just to give you guys, and we're coming up here on the end of what I have to share with you. I did think it would be good to give you kind of an assessment or an evaluation of, well, I'm currently putting my money in a high interest savings. So show me how this would be different or give me a different net result than doing my high interest savings. And so I went on the internet. I designed this presentation not quite a year ago. And at that time, the highest interest rate account for savings I could find was 1.6. I don't know what it is today, but whether you're able to find 2 or 2.1 or 1.1, whatever it is today, the numbers are going to be similar. We're going to use the same $600,000 and either put it in a savings account like I've shown on the left column, or put it in a policy like the example we just went through. So by age 65, we have a lot more accumulation simply because the policy is just earning a lot higher interest over time. We also are able to pull out a lot more income. We're actually able to pull out more income than money we started with. That's interesting. That's something I would have to show you with pictures, but the unique way that a life insurance policy works is that the value has to go up every year. And so you can actually take out more money than what you started with at a given age. On the other hand, with the savings account, we have to take out less than what we started with. And the reason that I showed us that we're taking out 665 in retirement income, even though we started with 782, is I figured you're going to have to pay your taxes on, if you're doing things the traditional way with a 401k or an IRA, you're going to have to pay your taxes on the money you're withdrawing. And I figured we pay those taxes out of the savings account. So using the same $600,000 over the same 25-year period, depending on which vehicle you use, can make a massive difference in opportunity cost, because we missed out on $122,000 compound interest that we lost if we used a savings account. And we paid a whole lot of taxes on interest that we earned along the way. And the biggest difference was when we went to distribute from our different accounts. If we do the traditional way with savings in a 401k, we actually are able to keep a little less than $1 million less than if we have a policy that produces tax-free income. So overall, using the same $600,000, but just allocating them in a different place, we can either come out 1.1 million ahead or come out 1.1 million less than. All the difference is here is just the difference in vehicle. And so that's why I don't like talking about interest rates and whatnot, because when you say 4, 5, 6% interest, people don't get excited. But the thing is when you distribute from an account and it's tax-free, it makes a really, really big difference. And the other thing is when you don't interrupt the compounding growth of your capital account, every time you take the money out and use it, you save a lot of money. So that's kind of what I had to share with you guys today. That's kind of the breakdown. I haven't been paying attention to the chat the last couple of minutes. So if there were some questions I missed, Jim, I definitely want to hit those. And I also welcome people's feedback. Is this good stuff? Does it sound like too good to be true? I'm open to questions if there are some.
So let's take a gauge here, and let's play devil's advocate and be as brutal as we can on Adam here for a minute, and play that game. So type into the chat what you think a better investment vehicle is, your traditional 401k or IRA versus this policy or this idea. I don't really care if you're right or wrong, just your gut reaction right now.
Bruce had a really good question there, so we'll want to get to that. Bud, what do you mean by MPI? What's MPI stand for?
Yeah, sorry about that. You know, I believe it or not, I just saw it on TikTok the other day. It sounds similar. I'm just I got to look up what the actual initial means.
All right. Can I move on to Bruce's question while you're doing that?
Yeah, sure thing.
Bruce, I think your question is really good. And I would say the two act differently as an asset class of their own. And actually, let me even back up one step further. What I just shared with you guys in the comparison I made was not to say that it's an either or choice between having a traditional 401k or some sort of traditional account versus life insurance. That is not the goal. I would not advocate that you should dump one and go with the other all in, simply because I think it's wise to have some diversification. And because what I said at the very beginning, none of us does have a crystal ball. If tax rates would actually go down, you probably would be in a better spot to use a 401k. But none of us knows where they're going to go. And so it gives you more control if you have asset classes spread across the board that not only diversify you as far as asset allocation, but diversify you from a tax perspective. And so I would just encourage you that 80% of all your wealth in taxable and tax deferred might be an overconcentration. What if you could spread yourself out a little more evenly and accumulate more tax-free? So I just want to be clear that it's not about an either or. And I don't look at life insurance as a silver bullet. I think it is one asset class that can fit into a portfolio and help you do what you're already going to do and just do it better and to a greater impact. So I want to clarify that. But then going back to the question of, is this similar to universal life? What are the differences? Without getting into a really long discussion on it, there are just a couple key differences. Universal life generally can accumulate more value, or you would expect it to, because within that account, universal life, they separate into two things. You have the insurance side and the cash side. And on the insurance side, generally, depending on which company you use, on the insurance side, those costs can adjust up incrementally each year. So at 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, the numbers look really good. Once you get 50, 60, 70 and beyond, the numbers don't look as good because the cost of insurance generally will go up inside that contract. Now, on the flip side, the way they sell it is on the cash account, they tie it to market performance and they put a floor on it. And they say, if the market goes up 30% this year, you'll get to enjoy 10% of that. But if the market goes down 30%, we'll give you a floor of 0. And that way you don't have to ride the downs. And so it sounds really appealing that you can take advantage of the ups, but not the downs. But then they fail to mention the side that there's an increasing expense of insurance in that contract each year. So if the market has 2 down years in a row, yeah, your cash account was floored at 0, but you're still having to pay your insurance expense. And so you can actually have negative years, and they don't illustrate that. So it's not as predictable of an asset. That doesn't mean it's bad, but it can't do what I was just illustrating for you, because the way whole life insurance works is a lot simpler. It's a fixed contract. You put the money in, the cost of insurance is fixed. And while the dividend isn't fixed, the dividend has been paid reliably for many years. I mean, the companies I work with have been paying them for over 100 years. And so you have a contractually minimum guaranteed upside without the dividend. And then on top of that, you get the dividend too. And there is no downside risk. And there is no increasing cost of insurance. So it is a very stable, predictable asset. On the other hand, when you illustrate it, it'll never illustrate at 7, 8, 10%. So it just comes down to, how does this asset fit within your strategy and which of those is a better setup for you? Okay, so moving on, somebody said maximum premium indexing secure compound interest account is an index universal life policy with sexy advertising. Okay. Oh, wow. Company names and everything. Yeah, I mean, the short version is index universal life will look attractive on paper, but the reality of how it plays out may be different. Versus whole life, there's not much that changes. They give you guaranteed values. I wish I'd have heard this 20 years ago. Tell me about it, Bruce, because I learned about it when I was in my 30s, and I felt like I wished I'd been told when I was in my 20s. But bottom line is there's a lot of things I can think of in life where I've been like, man, I wish I'd have learned earlier. Can you only use it to invest passively in multifamily? Oh, absolutely not. So the way you would look at this asset is this is your cash account. So if right now your primary cash account is your savings, if you wanted to employ this as a capital strategy, maybe you start shifting a portion of that into this asset. So I would look at it as a cash savings that can support whatever investing you do. Stocks trading, options trading, real estate, building a business, private loans, buying private interests in private equity. I mean, you could use the money however you want. Other than time, other disadvantages. Mark, yes. Let me give you what I think are the key disadvantages or the cons if we're doing pro cons. Disadvantages. One, you got to qualify with underwriting. Or if you don't qualify with underwriting, we got to find somebody who can, like a child, a business partner, a family member, something like that. Two, you're locking yourself into a fixed premium commitment for a period of time. That period of time can be short. You know, it could be just a few years, but you are locking yourself in. So unlike a Roth or a savings account, you can't put in 500 this month because you feel like it and then nothing for the next 3 months because you don't have the money. So that would be one of the disadvantages. And then the other disadvantage is you don't have 100% liquidity in the first few years. And so if that really bugs you, those are disadvantages. Okay, Adam, this is great. How long does it take to get set up? Michael, if I'm reading the question right, if somebody met with me today and said, this is something I want to do, we'd go through the underwriting process, which can be from 2 to 6 weeks or longer, depending on how difficult that is. So usually folks are set up in about a month's time. Can we get set up overseas? Not sure about that, Michael. Let's have an offline conversation. Heard CVLI is more expensive than term. Yes, it is. Absolutely it is. Yep. If you buy a $100,000 death benefit on term insurance versus whole life insurance, you're going to pay more for the whole life. That is absolutely correct. But the thing is we can still build a cash asset that makes sense.
So
these are really good questions.
That just a little bit more, Adam. So the why is this piece, the differences between term and whole is that term doesn't have any of these cash value advantages built into it, correct?
Yes, and insurance companies are really good at understanding what's called actuarial science. They know when we're going to die. And so they are really good at, if they give you a 20-year term policy, it's because they're pretty good and sure you're not going to die in the next 20 years. So that's going to expire worthless.
Yeah, I want to really zero in on a different concept here, though. I think that the insurance benefit here is a side benefit.
Yep.
In my mind.
Yep.
We're not buying insurance. When I buy term insurance, I'm buying just insurance to,
Yes.
you know, for that. This is not and to me, it's just a different savings vehicle that
Correct.
happens to have a very good insurance policy attached to it.
Yep.
So if you can think of your 401k having an insurance policy built into it, and you get to make all of these contributions to your 401k and you're building up your nest egg all along the way. And oh, by the way, when you die, you also have this nice death benefit that's built into it. Okay. That's the way I look at it in my simpleton mind. Okay. That also from the standpoint of the benefits of being able to take out loans against your policy. Do you have that ability in a term policy? Adam?
No.
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 Does a term policy have cash value that counts as liquidity?
No.
Okay. So two very, very, very different things. So are you paying for those additional things? Yes, you are, but you're giving yourself a lot more options, a lot more resources. Now, earlier, Adam said that he would not compare this or advise for you to use this instead of your 401k. And I will add on to that and say that I would absolutely go against what Adam just said and use this as a vehicle instead of a 401k with caveats. Okay, if you have a 401k that is paying you nothing and you're just banking on your investment decisions, it has no downside guarantees or risk reduction. So it's all on you if you're self-directed.
True.
Okay.
True.
If it's a company owned, still no downside. I've lost, I cannot tell you how many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars I have lost in company 401s. But this has a downside protection that doesn't have, okay? If your company is matching, then I would absolutely always be in that plan up to the amount they matched. But then beyond that, I would be looking at other vehicles, whether, and this is, you know, assuming you're a W-2 employee, I'd be looking to either have my own self-directed account, or I'd be looking at something along the lines of this account to diversify, you know, where I'm putting my money. For me, one of the most attractive pieces here, though, is talking about the ability to borrow money. So let's compare and contrast that. Are there any restrictions on what you can buy with that borrowed money, Adam?
So no, it is your own cash account. So once the cash comes from the policy into your hands, you do with it whatever you want.
Okay.
It can be anything. Which,
so that's different from your borrowing from your 401k, correct? They have restrictions.
Absolutely. And that's what it really comes down to, is the clients that I have that choose to implement this strategy, which, let me back up a little bit too. And thank you for throwing in your 2 cents, Jim, because I'm not even really allowed to say things like that. Guys, I'm a fee-based fiduciary. I have to play by a given set of rules that the SEC and FINRA guidelines dictate. So I'd get in a lot of trouble to say what Jim just said, but that doesn't mean I don't agree with what he said. That probably wasn't a compliant statement.
All right, we'll let you take it back, and it'll just be my 2 cents.
There's actually a really interesting, it's a 1:17 video from Jack Bogle, who was the founder of Vanguard, one of the biggest fund companies in America. So this is a Wall Street guy, part of the Wall Street industry, talking about the extraordinary cost of investing through traditional Wall Street means. Jim, are you okay with me pulling that up? It's a 1:17, and I think it's such a great video.
Sure.
It would be okay to share?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And in the meantime, while you're looking for that, I'll also go over, you know, when you're doing a compare and contrast, not just the loan product, but I do want to deal with the loan product. What are the other differences between a loan you can take out on your 401k versus the cash value life insurance policy? I know you're restricted to 50% on your 401k, and you're also restricted to what those loans are good for, and also how the interest rate is tied to that, and the repayment schedules, and who is in control of those repayment schedules, and how long they can be.
Those are all, by the way, I've been paying attention to the chat. Those are all really good topics, and I will be able to give a high-level overview answer to that here in a second. Let me play this video clip from Jack Bogle because I just think it's so great.
We all get a return from the stock market in the long run. The return is created by American business.
Can you raise the volume on it, Adam?
But that's an 8%.
What was that now?
Can you raise the volume?
I will do I've got about as high as I can. Is it?
Okay, go
Let's
ahead.
Try. Let's see.
And also just copy and paste the URL and throw it in the chat so we can watch it later.
Yep.
You know, an 8% market, we don't share 8.5%, nor do we share 6.5%, whatever it might be. We share 8. So that is the gross return that's created by American business. But we in the markets get the net return after the insanely high costs of financial intermediation. And those can be as much as, say, 2% a year. And it's very high. It's not only management fees, administrative fees, marketing costs, turnover costs. Funds are constantly buying and selling securities. And it turns out to be about 2% less than the market return. So we all earn 8%, say, we all get 6%, and which people don't think nearly enough about. Over an investment lifetime, we put up 100% of the capital. We take 100% of the risk, and we get about 30% of the market's long-term return.
Did everybody catch what he said there? We all take 100% of the risk. We put up 100% of the capital, but we only benefit from 30% of the upside in the traditional Wall Street platform. I just think, and that's from a Wall Street person himself, the guy who founded the largest fund company in America. So I just think it's the only thing that I'm pointing out is realize that no matter what kind of investing you do, all investing comes with costs, fees, and expenses. It doesn't matter. It all comes with costs, fees, and expenses. So it's a matter of allocating capital the best way that you can to try to either minimize those expenses or recover expenses in some way, shape, or form. I just dropped the YouTube link for that one. Do you need a third party QI-ish company to, I think they mean qualified intermediary company, to actually transfer from life insurance account to other investment choice? No. Nope, it's your cash.
What does that look like, Adam? Do you have to wait for a week to get a
Great
check
question.
from the insurance company, or what is it, a direct transfer into a different account? How's that work?
Yep, great question. So guys, I do this with my own money, have used this and leveraged this into my own real estate investing. And depending on your company, you're between 7 and 14 days between when you request the money from your policy and when you have it in your hand or in your bank account. 7 to 14 days.
And
so
can you have the money go directly to, let's say, for instance, you're closing, you can say, just send the money to this title company and make it payable to this particular LLC or whatever, or does it have to come to you first?
You have to ACH it to your own account with your own name first.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So I'll go through these questions. Joel had asked, so you said you can take out a loan to buy other assets such as real estate. Can you describe in more detail how that kind of loan would work? What are the payment terms? What does the in and out cash flow look like? And then also to what I had said, how are interest rates determined? And what is the payback period, and is it flexible? What do those types of things look like?
Yep. So I'll try to answer those as quick as I can. And then if you want offline conversation for more in the weeds, and I can actually run examples for you where you've got the numbers on a spreadsheet. So the short version is policy loan rates today, and they've been this way for over 15 years. Policy loan rates today among most companies are between 4 and 5%. So they're going to be a little bit higher than market rates. But keep in mind, you're also earning a higher dividend on that money, even while you're paying that loan rate.
So is that loan, that interest rate being paid back to you in your policy, or is it being paid to the insurance company?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So the insurance company is going to pay you a dividend on the cash that's in your policy while you pay them to use their money. Your borrowing rate is less than your dividend crediting rate, which means you're arbitraging your dollars. Your dollar is still working, gaining, and compounding even when you use it. And how the loan works is you literally either call the insurance company or send them a one-page piece of paper that says, I want 20 grand. And then they drop it in your account or they mail you a check, depending on which option you choose. That gets to you in 7 to 14 days. You use the money however you want. Nobody's going to ask you questions.
So
they will send you, go ahead.
A little deeper, Adam. So let's say, for instance, that your floor was 6% in the policy, or 5%, whatever it is.
Okay.
So when you're borrowing for less than that.
Correct.
Okay. So if it's 6 and we're borrowing at 5, so what impact does that have on the policy? Does that slow down the growth of the policy? Does that have any effect on the death benefit? What are the consequences of that?
It does not slow down the growth of the policy in that once you return the principal amount, right? So let's say you took 50,000. Once that makes it back in, your net cash value trues up to the gross ledger, and the gross ledger tracks those values as though you're not using the money. So there's always a gross ledger tracking each year. You should be at 50,000 this year, 55 this year, 67 this year, 74 this year. That gross ledger keeps ticking along so that as soon as you dump the principal back in, your net account value immediately trues up to that forecasted value as though you'd never used it. So that's what makes it different from a savings account. Whereas with a savings account, you take the money out, you quit earning interest. You don't start earning interest again until you put it all back.
So your net result is, correct me if I'm wrong, it in reality was a 0% loan. You didn't pay anything for the loan?
Yep. Actually, you could even say your net was a -% loan because your dollars
Right.
compound just a little bit more every year.
Right. Right.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Gotcha.
So, and I want to get back to that question of how does repayment work? So
Yeah.
you define the terms. So you can take 50 grand, hold on to it for the next 7 years. Let's say your deal doesn't go as planned and it takes a long time to get out of it. And then you finally sell the property or refinance it 7 years from now. And then you can put the money back then, plus interest. You could do what I do. What I do is I'll take the money and I'll put myself on an interest only payment so that all that I ever have outstanding is my principal. There's no interest that ever accumulates. I just start making monthly payments back to the policy so that whenever I do refinance, sell, or otherwise, all I have to do is put my principal amount back.
So you're saying the payment terms are set by us. It could be a monthly payment, or it could be a one-time payment.
Yep.
Or it could be periodic payments whenever we have capital come back.
Yep. That's correct. So again, it's all about control.
And again, I'll compare that to a 401k loan. Very, very different.
Yeah, they put you on a schedule and you have to follow the schedule.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and what does the in and out cash flow look like? I think we answered that. If we didn't, Joel just re-asked that piece of the question. And then coming back down, did you need a third party? And did we address that? You said you did not need a third party to your
and Michael asked, how long how long do you have to wait basically to use your money?
Yeah.
So obviously, let's just say you had a $24,000 annual policy premium, like the example of the real estate investor that I used. Okay. You have two choices. You can start putting in $2,000 a month. In that case, you're building it up gradually over time, right? Versus you could write a check for the entire $24,000 right off the bat, dump it in, and you've immediately put in all that you were going to put in for that year. So you would have access to more money in the second scenario where you make an annual premium payment. You've dumped in 24 grand. You'll have access to anywhere between 40 to 70% of that, just depending how your policy is structured. Okay. Versus if you're putting in 2,000 a month, you'll have access to anywhere between 40 and 70% of that. But 2,000 is smaller than 20,000. So idea being, Michael, you have access to money immediately once it goes in. It's just a matter of, do you want to phase it in over 12 months or do you want to plunk it down in a lump sum for the year and then wait till next year to do the same thing again?
So Adam, could you go over the differences between your the cash value liquidity versus how much you can borrow? As you and I had a discussion a few months ago about you have very different stages in your life and very different stages in your investing life. So you can get to a point eventually where you need to maintain a certain amount of liquidity in order to do deals. And we talked about, okay, we can use this idea to not only maintain liquidity, but to actually buy something at the same time, which is that life benefit. So, but from my recollection, you don't have access to 100% of that money as liquid. But is that a different concept than how much you can borrow?
So your cash value will be reflected. Let's again go back to what I just said. Anywhere between your cash value in year one will be anywhere from 40 to 70% probably of what you put in that very first year. Okay. About 90 to 95% of your cash value will be available to you to loan. The insurance company does that with your protection in mind because they don't want you to over borrow early in the stage of your policy. Because if you do that, you could potentially accumulate interest faster than you're earning it on your dividends because you haven't had the chance to accumulate any dividends, if that makes sense. As you get later into the policy's life, like year 5 and beyond, you then are able to borrow roughly 98% of what your cash value is. They just never quite let you do 100%. And that's more than anything designed to be a safety measure so that you don't create a situation with the policy where you have what would be the equivalent of a capital call, where you're having to come up with money to maintenance the interest you're accumulating in debt because you're not accumulating dividends fast enough.
So I want to clarify that statement because this is important. We're talking about two different concepts here. One is your cash value, how much it is. The other is how much you can borrow from that.
Right.
Two very different things. So for me, as an example, the most important piece for me is to maintain my liquidity. I don't want to borrow the money. I just, I don't want it sitting in a checking or savings and doing nothing when it could be somewhere else earning some money and giving me a death benefit. So I see that as, even though it may be earning 5%, it's also buying me $1 million. Okay, so in the long term, what is my return? My return on investment is much higher than the 5%. But borrowing how much I have liquid is a different concept. If I'm talking to the 20-year-old me, I want to know how much of that I can borrow and put to work and gain additional return on top of what it's earning in the policy. So do you want to address that? The cash value, how much of your money remains that you can claim as liquid, even though you're not borrowing it, compared to how much you can borrow of that?
Well, I think the short answer is, again, in that first year, that's going to be somewhere between 40 and 70% of what you put in. In the second year, it'll be a little bit higher. The third year, a little bit higher. By the time you're 10 years in, you're likely to have more liquidity than what you've even contributed. And so the way to get around what you were just talking about, Jim, is let's say someone has 200,000 in a savings account right now. We don't want to dump all 200,000 in this year, or we just took somewhere between a 30 to 60% haircut. We don't want to do that. So what we would do is we would kind of do the math up front and phase that money in little chunks or little tranches and do that over, say, a 10-year period. So I can move in 20,000 of my 200 this year. And remember, I'm going to have access, let's just say, to half of that. So I'll have access to 10 of that, plus I still have 180 in my account. So now, instead of taking my liquidity from 200,000 down to 100, I took it from 200 to 190. And I'm now building an asset that's appreciating and accumulating. And then there's going to be a crossover point where year 5, 6, 7, all of a sudden, between the two accounts, I've got more than I started with. And then, of course, once we get it all phased into the policy over, let's say it's a 10-year period, because we can structure them like that. We can structure them where it's 10 and done. Now I've shifted a $200,000 taxable asset to a $200,000 tax-free asset that appreciates without me having to contribute to it. And it's available for me to plug into my deals. And like Jim said, it also has a death benefit attached. So when I'm gone, my legacy leverages up immediately. So that's kind of how we would work around that problem of wanting to maintain liquidity.
So I know that we could, I could ask you questions for 4 hours. But I do want to get to some of the networking, but make sure that we answer everyone else's questions. Can you roll a 401k over into a CVLI, into a cash value life insurance policy?
You cannot do a true rollover because a 401k is a qualified account and a life insurance policy is not. They're treated under two different tax codes. You can shift money from a 401k into a policy, paying the taxes and getting around the penalties with a very unique arrangement called a 72T. We do not do that very often. We don't recommend it very often, but I do have a few clients that are doing that arrangement. It's a very unique and special situation where we would do that.
And the last question was, at what time can you take it out as retirement pay? And do you pay interest on that? Or do you have to pay that back? Or is it just paid back when you die?
So the first part of it, at what time, you get to decide, but obviously the longer you wait, the higher the value is, similar to Social Security, because when you're going to treat it like a pension, the longer the money has to grow and compound, the more of an income stream you could take. So, but it's up to you. Most of my clients that do that, we're looking at traditional retirement years. So required minimum distributions start at 72. That would be a time to look at, should I start taking distributions from this? Do you pay interest on that? You could, but you probably won't need to, just because your compounding dividend is so large by that point generally that even for the money you're borrowing, it's it's pretty incredible. And I don't know how to explain it other than just show you on a piece of paper. So if anybody really wants to dive into that retirement income picture, I've got something cool I can show you.
And by the way, guys, don't feel like, I want to assure you that Adam is what we affectionately call a go-giver, and will walk you through these things. You will not feel pressured that you're being sold something to. He is very good at just explaining, just like he is doing here today for us, you know, how this works, and giving you enough information for you to make a good informed decision for you and for your situation. But I'll tell you also that this is not just about you, and not just about a way to remain liquid or a way to borrow more of your savings. And in effect, this is your savings. It's not that different from, you know, from a 401k, in that you're trying to build a nest egg over a period of time. One piece of this is this can be a wealth strategy for people who have never had wealth. You know, think about, you're buying $1 million policy. Your family has never had $1 million. You've gone through several generations and never been able to accumulate any generational wealth. And this is almost like buying a guarantee that when you're gone, there is a legacy. Whether or not you were successful in your business, whether or not you were successful in your real estate and your investment choices, there's something left, generational wealth left behind. And you can put in place in your wills or in your trust, you know, how that money's to be used. So that if you're trying to create generational wealth, this is a foundational piece to be able to do that. You know, and again, we can go off into 1,000 different questions and stay on this for 4 or 5 hours, but okay, Adam already took care of that one. Okay, all right. Adam, any closing things that you, oh, one other question. I promise this will be the last. I'll just make myself shut up. We said in the example, $2,000 a month. What happens if you get laid off? What happens if you lose your job?
Great question. Really good question. So there's a couple things we can build into these. They're called riders. And sometimes it makes sense to do so where maybe we can pick up the slack. Like, for an example, for my clients that are younger and they've got a lot of working years ahead of them, we often will include a disability rider, which allows that if they would be disabled and can't go to work, the insurance company will pay the premiums, because your income drives your whole plan, right? And if you quit making income and quit going to work tomorrow, you're probably going to stop contributing to your different accounts. So that rider is a nice benefit. Now, specifically to Jim's question, what if I lose my job? What if it's, you know, something like that? We generally, this is why we want to fund this asset with either existing assets or existing cash flows out of your budget so that it doesn't become an additional expense. Because we find if one of those scenarios would happen to you and this is an added expense, or we're not able to fund it with existing assets, that it makes it hard to maintain. If you can make it through the first 2 to 3 years of funding this, it opens up a whole world of options for you. If you run into the scenario where your income stops for a period of time, we'll have some options. If it happens to you in the first year or the first 2 years, and it doesn't look like we're going to be able to maintain the premium, you're still not completely all out. You basically have 2 fundamental options at that point. Number 1, you can surrender the policy, in which case you would walk away with less cash than you put in. So not a very good setup. Or number 2, and again, it's not really what we want to do, but at least it's a reasonable option, is you could freeze the policy and say, I don't want to make any more payments. I'm going to go to reduced paid up. And you've at least purchased a permanent death benefit for the rest of your life that nobody can take away from you. And it will have some cash value attached to it, just not a lot. So in the first 2 years, it's a little more dicey than once we get, you know, to year 3 and beyond, because from year 3 and beyond, we have enough cash. We can take a policy loan and maintenance the premium for as long as we need to until we're earning an income again, which it's kind of funny. After I did my first policy in 2011, I did have a transmission go out on a car, and I was stretching to contribute to my policy. So I actually did have to delay it for 2 months. And what I did was I took policy loans and covered those 2 months. And then over time, I was able to return the money back. So you do have some options.
Okay, cool. So they want to know, Bernadette asked for your contact information, and we'll just take that as our cue for everyone officially can start dropping their, at least your name, email, and phone number into the chat so that people have an opportunity to network with each other. Would also encourage you to put a LinkedIn profile there so that we can connect on social medias. But this is your opportunity to network with everyone by putting your information in the chat. If you're new to Zoom meetings, you have two different methods of saving this information. One is when you open the little chat window in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see the word file, and to the right of that are three dots. If you open the three dots, it'll give you the option by clicking on those three dots to save the chat. And I would only encourage you, if you do that for the first time, there will be an additional window that pops up that will show you where it's being saved. Do not close that window, minimize it because it can be hard to find. The second way is just to hit select all and copy and paste it into another document. And that way sometimes it's a little cleaner and faster. And we'll give everyone the option to save the chat for the last time before we get off the call today. And with that, I'm going to do some breakout rooms, and when everybody gets exhausted, we'll stop. Adam, are you going to be able to stick around, or do you have to go?
I'll hang around, and I just wanted to say thank you, everybody, for your time and attention. I really enjoy talking about this stuff, and I appreciate that you all took the time to listen and ask really good questions. Thank you.
And it's our pleasure to have you here, and you're always welcome back.
Awesome.
Let's see, how many breakout rooms do we want? 5 breakout rooms. Here we go. Ahmad, are you in this room?
Yeah, sorry, I had to come back on because I was on my phone before.
Yeah.
It dropped off.
So do you want me to try to manually assign you a room, or you just want to have a room of 2?
I'm good with either.
So am I. Let's see here. Make sure that there's nobody stranded here. And we're good there. We're good there. Okay. So,
Jim, can I ask you a quick question? So it's Mark Zaninsky. I know my audio is still screwed up. I'm gonna put myself out. Can you let me back in, please? And I believe I was in breakout room 3.
I did not understand a single word of that, Mark. Your audio is still completely messed up. I don't know what's going on with it, but you might want to try switching to a different audio, or at the very least disconnect it and plug it back in. Let me see if I can figure out how to do that. Boy, I've never had this mod where I've got an unassigned person and cannot find them to assign them. They're asking to be put in a room, and I've never had to do that.
We can just chat here. It's okay. I'm sure.
Well, no, I mean, in addition to you, I have got Mark, whose audio is messed up.
Right.
And I think possibly Cheyenne is also here with us. No.
Oh, it's us.
Oh no, she just she just has not joined, so she might be in limbo.
I got so I did just get a request to join another room. So
okay.
I'll go join that room then. I'll be back.
Okay, sounds good.
Hi, Jim. Can you hear me normally now?
Hey, I can hear you good this time. Yes. What was going on there?
Sorry, I put in the chat. I thought I fixed it because I guess one of my kids had it really cranked loud, so I thought maybe that was screwing.
Oh, it was overmodulating?
I thought it was overmodulated, but I had to just kick myself out, and I was actually typing in the chat to you. I think I'm in a breakout room 3, so if you could send me back there.
All right, let me see if I can figure out how to assign you to number 3. And I also can put you in, if you had a good conversation, I'll put you back in 3, but we've got a room that right now has 1 person in it, that it has 2, but only 1 of them has joined.
I can go in that one too if you want. I didn't.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a very good person to network with.
Okay, great.
Okay, all right, I'll put you there.
Thank you.
Cheyenne, are you still in the room?
Okay.
Hey, Bobby, how have you
Hello.
been?
Hey, Jim.
So where did everyone go? I'm only,
no, did we?
I'm only seeing, oh, and we got Adam back. We got Bobby back, Bud. Okay.
13, like 13
Lost
people.
a few.
Yep. Okay. Looks like we're all back. So was that too long, guys? Do we need a little bit shorter breakout room?
Okay.
I thought it was great.
Okay. Fantastic. So we've got, we're down to 10. So I'm going to create the rooms again. So if you've got to go or, you know, go ahead and feel free to drop off now. Also, there's still a couple of people that have not put their information in the chat. If you're still with us, please drop your information in the chat so that everyone can communicate with you. Right.
Yeah, I've got time for one more, but then I'm
Okay,
gonna have to jump.
here we go.
Still me.
All right, guys, I think we're all back. And I know that Bruce, you said that was the last one for you, I think.
Yeah, I gotta jump off.
All right, no problem.
Yeah.
Does anybody else want to go again, or we're down to 9 people? If anybody wants on, we'll just call this the room.
Yeah.
Can I just say thank you both to Adam and for you, Jim? This was great information. You know, it really was, and you know, thank you. Just thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Back to you, Bruce, too. You asked some really thoughtful questions, and I always appreciate it as someone who's carving time out of their day to speak to a group when somebody really engages and is involved, and makes it a lot more fun discussion when there's good questions.
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, let's connect. I mean, we are connected. Let's do a Zoom and chat and talk about
Sure, man.
things.
Absolutely.
So thanks, guys.
There's so many more questions that, and guys, I'm just going to leave this room. We're not going to break out. So if you need to drop off, just drop off anytime. But there's so much more to the different strategies that you could employ or deploy using the insurance product. I know for me personally, Adam and I had talked about, okay, if you've got X number of dollars, in your example, I think you said 200,000, but let's just say it's, for me, an easier number. Say you have $1 million liquid and you need that liquidity to go do so many deals. And if you're in a position where you're trying to do as many deals as you can, you don't want to deplete that liquidity. And that's my position.
Yeah.
But that money is getting eaten up every day, that it's just sitting there. You know, inflation is eating away at it. And so that's the downside of me trying to maintain that liquidity. Now, my justification is that, okay, it's still being put to work, because as I get on these other deals to help people pull their deals together, you know, I'll earn money off of the deal, being on the deal. So the liquidity is not 100%. It's not sitting there, you know, being eaten away by inflation, but it can still do more work than what it's doing. You know, we always talk about making our money work harder than we do, and it's just sitting there. It's lazy money, you know. So if I put it into a product like this that has cash value, and there are strategies that you can use where, as Adam talked about, we can bring in, you know, just a little bit per year or per month, so that you only take maybe 10% of that. So 90% of your money is still liquid. And then you take this 10% to start to slowly convert it one bite at a time into a different asset. And so you still remain 90% liquid because you only took 10% of it to do the insurance piece. And that insurance piece still has cash value, but it's not at 100% of its value anymore. So if it were at 50%, so I took 100,000, I still have 900,000 liquid. So I'm still almost whole for doing deals. And I've got the 100,000 starting to build this cash value policy, and half of that is cash value. So I'm not at 900, I'm at 950. So I'm maintaining almost all of my liquidity, and that money now is starting to buy another asset that actually has a guaranteed floor for income for its rate of return. Plus it has all the upside of additionally having the ability to borrow that money and put it back to work doing another real estate deal, or buying, you know, gold, or you know, whatever else you want to do with it. So that's, you know, we could go down an entire rabbit hole just talking about that concept. But that's for, you know, guys that are old farts like me that are in a different place. But if I were young and looking at it, I'd be looking at all the benefits of, number one, if I fail at this over and over and over and over again, and I'm a total failure, you know, I've got 5 generations of goof ups, and I'm going to be the 6th. So we'll always be poor. Well, at the very least, I can guarantee that my children won't be poor. They might be goof ups too, and they you know, don't do anything with the money, but it's like buying guaranteed wealth over a long period of time, as opposed to yes. And also a lot more flexibility in the loan options, a ton more flexibility in the loan options. You know, so it's the death benefits and all the other insurance benefits are great. They're fantastic. But the flexibility of what you can do with it and being able to do those things tax-free, there's so many more advantages to this in my mind and so much more flexibility than your 401k. The question is, how do you convert that? You know, you spend, we're all taught that we need to be doing the IRA, the 401k, and somebody's going to benefit, you know, other than just us. But I don't, the biggest thing for me as I started getting older, and Jim and I were talking about it, which is you don't have any control. You know, they have most of the control. You get to pick, you know, 10 different funds, but you can't move all your money into a different 401k. You know, they have it locked down most of the time, 90% of the time, they have it locked down because they've got side agreements, you know, that Fidelity's going to pay them X number of dollars to manage that fund, or Wells Fargo is, or JP Morgan is, you know, so they're making money on your money. And that's why they try to lock you out of it. But
can I ask you a question, Adam?
Yeah.
I worked for a short spell with New York Life Insurance, you know, about 10, 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And something came across that I found so interesting that I wish I knew about when my kids were born. Can you give a cash value life insurance policy as, say, a gift to a newborn, buy a premium for them, and when they're turned 18 or when they get married, you can present them with a fully paid cash value life insurance policy?
You can, and actually, not only is it a gift to them, but you can, for the time that you're building it and the time that they're young and aren't going to use it anyway, you can make use of it and take advantage of it. You would be the owner. They would be the insured person. And if they're an immediate family member of yours, you can actually transfer that asset to them with no tax consequences. So, and actually that would apply for children and grandchildren. So for your children and your grandchildren, you can do that and then transfer the ownership to them, like you said, at some predetermined point in the future when you feel like they're ready for that gift. And there's no reporting, no tax implications, no nothing.
So that's a way to buy a policy cheaper too.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Exactly right, because
you're old,
yes, because
confirmed.
Yep. Yeah, you're insuring a newborn.
And it still counts as cash value. You still get the benefit of that cash value as part of your liquidity. So you didn't just give away your liquidity, you're just giving away the death benefit is the way I understand it. Right, Adam?
Well, again, it would depend on if you want to gift them with that entire thing and transfer the ownership to them.
Oh, at a point in time.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But for the time you're the owner, you control the cash. That's right.
Yeah. And also James had a excellent point that I completely, and you need to work this into your presentation, Adam, that when you're using a 401k or an IRA to invest in real estate, you can only invest as an LP. You cannot invest as a GP.
That is
and with
right.
this money, you can borrow that money and invest as the GP.
Correct.
on the general partnership side.
Correct.
And you cannot do that with your IRA or 401k because you cannot have a direct benefit.
Then you're self-dealing. That's right. That's a prohibited transaction.
Exactly. So all of the self-dealing rules go out the window. There are no self-dealing rules. There are no restrictions on, well, you can only do business with X, Y, and Z, but you can't do, you know, the other things. Also, there's no, what is the, not Udemy, UBIT. There's no UBIT headaches that might arise.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, there's so many freaking benefits aside from, if you just can stop thinking about it as life insurance and think about it as a different thing.
It's a unique asset.
Yeah. And if just to wrap your head around it in simple terms, because it's so easy to get confused and start thinking about other things. And I agree with you. I don't think about this as it only earns 5 or 6%. No, it's going to earn whatever you decide to invest in.
Correct.
You're the one, we're just giving you a guaranteed floor.
That's right. the CEO at my company always, when people will ask in a meeting, well, what's the IRR? He'll go, it's irrelevant, because you're going to have a cash account and you're going to make use of the cash.
I would answer, no, the IRR is whatever you make it.
Yeah.
That's what I would answer. You know, you're looking at this property, you're underwriting this property. What is the IRR that you're underwriting? What does your pro forma say the IRR is? Well, your IRR is 15% and you need to borrow 100 grand in order to make that happen. Then your IRR is 15% and actually a little bit more than that for you personally, because you've got this other 5%, 6% that the policy's earning on top of that. So I think the big thing there is you're still limiting your thinking to this is an insurance policy. Well, not if you're using it to borrow the money and using that borrowed money to go out and do deals. Your return is whatever the return on the deal is.
So I want to real quick address, because Bud asked a really good question, what's UBIT? It's unrelated business income tax. And it's specific to, if you have like a self-directed IRA, your IRA can receive investment income and that's not taxed. But if you receive business income, it's subject to tax. So there's a lot of different scenarios where it could apply, and it would not serve us to try to cover all those. But I'll give you one common example where you could face UBIT in a self-directed IRA is if instead of taking, let's say your IRA's got 100 grand in it, and let's say you want to get into a deal for 200 grand. So you would go leverage the other 100 grand from a bank. Well, any returns you earn on the leveraged money that wasn't already in your IRA, you're going to have UBIT to pay on that. So that's one example, but there's a number of different examples where you could trigger UBIT.
And that's usually the biggest one that you get in trouble with.
And a lot of people don't expect it or don't know about it, because in their head, they're thinking, I'm doing this whole deal inside my IRA, so I'm good to go.
Yep.
Yes, your IRA can borrow money, and yes, you're doing the deal inside the IRA, but the IRS will not allow you to arbitrage tax advantages on dollars that you didn't earn.
But that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, by the way, guys.
Sure, sure. But it's important to know that it's there.
Right. If you have money in your IRA and you can't unlock it and use it some other way, one of the benefits in an IRA is that you can, the IRA itself is an entity. Think of it as an entity. And that entity has the ability to borrow money, non-recourse money, by the way. Okay. The entity is borrowing money. So if you have 100 grand in there, you could borrow 200 grand. And so now you can go deploy that extra 100 grand.
Right.
The 100 grand that you contributed is non-taxable, growing non-taxable. The other 100 grand is 100% completely taxable.
Yep.
Just because it's taxable does not mean that you shouldn't do it. You still get 70 cents of that dollar that was borrowed money.
That's right.
You know, so you're still compounding it.
Yep.
Most people get, like Adam said, they just get confused because they didn't know that was coming. And then they get mad that they had to pay it, but they still made money.
Yep. Yep. Good point. Good clarification.
Cheyenne has been on the call the entire time. It's incognito. I think, I'm assuming it's she, I think must be just recording so that she can watch later, because she's not answering chats or call outs. So
did thanks, Jim, and thanks everybody. I've really enjoyed this today.
Yeah, it's
same here. Yeah, same here. This is good.
There's a lot of great information and very timely. I appreciate it, Jim.
You bet, man.
And Adam.
Hey, Adam, when the time comes for me, can we reach out to you and talk about setting one of these up?
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have each other connected on LinkedIn right now, James?
I checked, and yes, we do.
Okay. Yeah, good deal. Absolutely.
And I'll add you as well, Adam. Yeah. I think we might be connected, but I'll check.
Hey, Adam, we were talking about if you could make a single contribution. Let's say you just got a $20,000 back from your a big IRS check, and you just make that lump sum.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? Can you, if you set up a minimum investment, like let's say you were doing $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month, and you were doing that, can you make additional one-time contributions that will and what are the different ways you can do that, and what would the impacts be?
Yeah, you're asking really good questions, and this one's hard to answer in a simplistic way, but I will try. So, the IRS, remember, puts a cap on, if you come in and you say, I want to put X many dollars into a life insurance contract, the IRS says, okay, you can do that and you can have the tax benefits, but you've got to buy at least this much death benefit for that amount of dollars you're putting in. And that's not a fixed number. They have a test for it. It's called a 7-year MEC test, or a 7-pay test. So at any 7-year window in the life of that life insurance policy, you've got to fit within those MEC guidelines. And that's how they prevent people from, you know, throwing in 100,000 in the first year, then nothing the next year, then 200,000 the next year. Is they've got that 7-year window, and it's got to be a relatively uniform funding structure that you're doing to stay within the guideline.
So is there a rule of thumb as how much of a spread there is between the min and the max?
No.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's individually underwritten to each individual person. So if you and I are the same age, Jim, and we have the same amount of money, if you get preferred and I only get standard, you're going to be able to do more than I can, which doesn't feel fair.
So the limiting factors are not just the $1 million policy, let's say. That would be one of the limiting factors.
Right.
But another limiting factor would be your age.
Yeah.
And another limiting factor would be your health. Another limiting factor might be your occupation. So all of those things come into play, if I'm hearing you right, for what your min and max is?
Yes. So let me give you the super simplified answer. The super simplified answer is you will not be able to do what they used to do, which is called a single premium paid up life insurance policy. Those are no longer allowed. People used to do those, and in 1987, the law changed, and you don't do those anymore. Okay. So that doesn't exist. About the shortest window that we could get it down to would be about 6 years. And quite frankly, I wouldn't advise you doing a time window under 10 years. So let's just say that for the sake of argument, you're going to need to have an ongoing contribution to this asset for 10 years, no matter how you carve it. We can, in the very first year, dump in extra dollars on top of whatever your regular premium will be. So let's say your regular premium is going to be $1,000 a month for 10 years. So that's $12,000 a year. In year one, we can probably dump in an additional 30, 40, 50,000 on top of your regularly scheduled 12. We can do it one time. We can do it one time at the very beginning of the policy. And the way we make it work with the IRS rules is certain companies, and not even every insurance company has this feature, but certain companies will allow you to buy 1-year term death benefit that expires in 1 year. So if I've got enough death benefit to plug in $12,000 a year, and that's my regularly scheduled premium, but I want to squeeze in an extra $30,000 in year one, I just buy enough death benefit that expires in 1 year, 1-year term insurance, and I add that additional death benefit for the first year to dump in the extra dollars. So that's a really simplistic way of describing a very complex process, which we're architects at doing that at my office. So we've done that for people. But the short answer is you can't just do a one and done. That doesn't exist anymore. You're going to have to fund it for at least 10 years. And yes, you can dump in a large lump sum on the front one time, not after that.
And does it have to be monthly payments? Can you make one
yearly
payment or quarterly payments?
Monthly, yearly, or quarterly.
Okay, either of those options.
Yep.
And what you just described is not the paid up rider add-ons.
That's right.
So could you explain a little bit about what the paid up riders are in those options?
Sure. Yep. So again, trying to keep it super simple. The kind of policy that I was talking about structuring is not a run-of-the-mill life insurance policy. Many agents won't have the understanding to know how to build it right. And depending on which company they work for, they may not even have the proper product structure to be able to pull it off. So some companies specifically allow you to build a policy as an asset. I'll name a few of them. I didn't want to do this with the bigger group, but since you all hung out and you're wanting to research and get answers to questions, there's a couple companies I can think of right off the bat. Mass Mutual, New York Life, Ohio National, all three of those companies, very strong financial ratings. All three of them understand that they have a wealthy market, people that are interested in creating a tax-free asset. And so they create product structures where we can manipulate the product into a cash account. You got to have the ability to do that. And there's two primary ways to do that. So this is to what Jim just said. There's paid up addition riders and 1-year term riders. The 1-year term rider inflates the death benefit for us like we need to, so that we don't trigger a MEC on the policy, so that we can squeeze in extra cash. We then combine that with what's called a paid up additions rider, which basically inflates our cash values early in the life of the policy. More than likely, 5, 7, 10 years into the policy, we're going to drop both of those riders, because by that point, when you put in your what's called your base premium, for every dollar you're depositing, you might be getting $1.30, $1.40, $1.50 in cash value. Once the policy reaches that level of efficiency, where for every dollar I put in, I can get $1.30 in growth, I don't need the help of those other riders anymore, so I drop them off.
But wouldn't they continue to add that kind of benefit? I mean, if your idea is to gain as much cash value as you can,
they would. And
that.
There's reasons to both do what I just said, and there's reasons to do what Jim just said, which is leave all the riders on and keep dunking in as much as you can. There's reasons to do either or both, just depending on what your purpose is for the policy. The other thing is, if you're 50s and by 65, you don't want to have a massive funding obligation, that might be a reason you drop that off, because you just don't want to keep making those level of contributions. Or if you're a business owner and you don't know if you're going to be owning that business 10 years from now, you know, you can only reasonably forecast your cash flows for however long you plan to continue owning the business. So there's reasons that you would or wouldn't do what I just said, but I'm just trying to expand on what you said, Jim, is that there's this rider called paid up additions, and it's how you build cash in an insurance policy, basically. That's how you build cash quickly, is with paid up additions. With what I just shared with you guys, you know more than 90% of insurance agents out there just now. With what I just told you, you know more than 90% of the field right now.
We should have said that as a disclaimer also,
Yep.
Adam. I think on that would be a really important piece to add to your presentation, because most everyone that looks at this is not going to take it at face value. They are going to seek advice from someone else to kind of verify the facts, especially the first few times they hear it. And that person is generally going to be their agent. And I think it's really important to know, because I had an insurance license. I had the Series 6, and I had, you know, a lot of education, and definitely had none of this, and definitely had no understanding of it whatsoever. And most insurance agents don't, and most agents cannot do this for you. Not that they couldn't do it, they just don't know how to do it, and they're not associated with the companies that are doing it. That this is not an insurance. The people that are deploying this idea and this strategy are not typically insurance clients. They're wealth clients. They're people that are trying to build and protect wealth. They're not people looking to buy insurance.
Correct. Yep. Correct.
So also, is there the point in time or options that you can put in place so that after paying for so many years, that there's enough premium coming back that the policy keeps building on itself and paying by itself? In other words, it's paying for the policy instead of you paying for the policy.
Yep. Yep. So your dividends eventually build to the point where they more than cover the base premium to keep the policy going. And so what a lot of clients will do when they get into retirement age, or what we call the distribution phase, and they're not wanting to contribute to assets, they're wanting to draw income from their assets. You can actually elect a couple things with the dividend. You can elect that it continues to build the policy, which is what we do from the start. You can elect that it pays the premium, so you don't have to. You can elect that they send you a check, which would be a taxable check. But if you want, if your dividend's $5,000, you can have them mail you a check for $5,000. As long as you're okay with that going on top of your taxable income, and you can take a cruise on it if you want to. So you have a lot of flexibility later in the policy's life. Again, this is a long-term asset. but the older it gets, the sweeter the deal gets. So there's a number of levers you can pull to not have to keep funding that asset.
So I don't know how much you know about Harbaugh's policy or some of the policies that some of the other large companies employ and some of the banks, but the death benefit that's in the policy, is Harbaugh getting that death benefit? Or when the banks or some other large organizations, I know the Waltons have used this also, is that death benefit staying with that individual, or is that death benefit coming back to the company who's buying the policy? Or is there strategies for both?
Well, there are strategies for both. And my understanding with Harbaugh's arrangement is his death benefit goes back to the University of Michigan, which is fine because his family will enjoy the benefits of his tax-free income in retirement.
Yeah. So could you speak to or think of an example where if he gets to keep the death benefit and I buy the policy, but he keeps the death benefit, I'm trying, there was something that was going through my mind where I was thinking that, okay, all these years I'm paying him money, but I'm not really paying him money. I'm buying a policy. Is that a tax write-off for me? The money it's outgoing money that I'm not getting a benefit from?
Maybe, maybe not.
Okay. What can you tell me about that idea?
Well, it gets complex when the owner and the insured are not immediate family members. It gets complex. So I can't even give you a general rule on that because it's going to be case by case how you set up that arrangement. And is it a discretionary employee benefit or something else? So I can't even give you a generally, I can't even do that. So I apologize, but it's just when you get to applying this in the business world and compensating employees, the tax rules get pretty complicated.
Yeah.
The
well,
answer,
I was really thinking in smaller, trying to figure out how we can use some of these really sophisticated ideas in a much smaller business, you know, where we only have 4 partners. You know, it's just us 4 guys, and we're going to figure out, okay, if one of us dies, we want everybody else, or if one of us leaves, or if one of us wants more compensation. Let's say that 3 of us have never done a deal.
Yeah.
And we're depending on all the resources of one individual.
Yeah.
Is there a way for us to protect some of that downside and, you know, or employ some of these more advanced strategies?
Yeah. So I'll just give you my opinion. I don't know if that's helpful, but I'll give you my opinion. As a business, you could go the corporate-owned life insurance route, and you could choose to take tax deductions on the premiums, in which case the death benefit, if it comes back to the business, will not be tax-free. I don't think that's the best option. I think the best option, and what we see most of our clients do that are a small business owner that want to do something like what you're talking about, they will personally own the policy with a business intention and a business use for it, but they will personally own the policy. They will fund the policy indirectly, basically through their business distribution or the wages they're earning through their business, right? So the business is paying for it, but it's an indirect payment. And they will pay the taxes on the money today so that the death benefit remains tax-free. And then individually, they have control and can decide who the beneficiary will be or change it, right? Because if you're the primary majority owner and your business partner changes, don't you want to have the freedom to go in there and change it to the new business partner?
Absolutely.
So generally, that's the way we would do it. And that also keeps it off the balance sheet of the business. So when it comes to negotiating a sale or a creditor's judgment or any kind of lawsuit, it's off the business books, right? But then if we want to go qualify for financing, we can put it on the business books by taking a policy loan and making a deposit in the account.
Mm-hmm.
So there's more flexibility and more control when you privately own that asset and go ahead and pay the taxes on the money today. And you have the tax-free benefits for later, and you have control and flexibility if things change. When you go corporate-owned life insurance, now everything's within the business, so you haven't really de-risked the business. because it's all part of the business's assets and it's on the books. And while you're taking a tax deduction for the premiums, the death benefit is not tax-free. And if you have a sale that doesn't go well, if you have a partner you're not getting along with, if you bring in a new partner, now you've got to follow the operating agreement around making changes to beneficiaries. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So your life is simpler when you own it personally. And you can still do that with a business purpose.
Yeah. And are there any self-insured options that you can employ with this if you're really worth a lot of money?
When you say self-insured options, help me understand what you're thinking.
Well, I'm thinking in the realm of when a business self-insures, you know, they, and we're not talking about this idea. We're just talking about a business that's providing health insurance.
Got it.
Self-insure. Or as an apartment owner, you're buying casualty, property and casualty, and you can self-insure. Is there any, you know, particulars to that?
So this could be your tier 1 capital that's earning 4% while you're waiting for something bad to happen. Is that what you're saying?
Well, let's go down that path, and then we can expand on it.
So the answer is yes. If you're going to self-insure, this is a really secure, productive, predictable asset where there's no downside risk. You can have that money pooling, and it's actually growing and productive, right? Because it's earning a dividend. So why not versus a savings account? Why not? So yes, from that perspective, if you're just pooling money for the purpose of self-insuring, I can see where it would be useful.
So I'm not sure that really addresses where my thought process is.
Okay, sorry that I missed it.
So when you self-insure for property and casualty, you're basically saying, Mass Mutual, you're telling me it's going to be $100 a month to buy this insurance policy. But I also know that you reinsure that or offer self-insured where I don't know if I'm taking more of the risk. So my contribution, instead of being $100 a month, is, I don't know, $75 a month, or it's still $100 a month, but I'm buying a lot more benefit.
Okay. I'll be honest with you, Jim, you are now above my bandwidth in that I haven't done an arrangement like that for a client to this date yet anyway. That would be a pretty big client. You're beyond my knowledge level at this point.
Okay. Yeah, I think, you know, I've known about this all my adult life, and I'm telling you that there's hindsight's 20/20, but there's, you know, I just think of the Chinese proverb, when's the best time to plant a tree?
Yeah.
You know, that, and yeah, for me, I'm 63. I've had a lot of health issues, and I'm assuming those health issues are going to count against me, even if I no longer have them, because I've had them in the past.
Yep, that's right.
And
risk factor. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So I was a diabetic, haven't been a diabetic for 10 years, but it doesn't matter. You were a diabetic, you know, and so those things will count against you. But so everything is in your favor. The sooner you do this, and even I'll even argue, even for me, I would think that my guess is I would probably employ, you know, someone else, either use someone else, one of my kids who are healthier, or my grandson, you know, or something along those lines. But even for somebody like me who had nobody, I'm single, no kids, no nothing. But I wanted to leave something behind. I could still argue that, you know, we'd have to run the numbers. But if I'm buying $1 million policy and my life expectancy is, and I know those guys are much smarter than me, but what is the chances of me gaming the policy? In other words, I only paid in 100 grand and I'm going to leave $1 million to my heirs. I know that that's not, those actuaries are much, much smarter than me and have, you know, thought through all these processes. But what I do know is that I have a 100% chance of leaving nothing if I don't do something, you know, and by, even if the actuary science is not on my side, I can still leave $1 million easier, you know, 100 grand at a time.
You can purchase a guaranteed tax-free net worth.
Say again?
You can purchase a guaranteed tax-free net worth at a discount.
So we explain that in simple terms to somebody who is a third.
Hamad? Yep. So
thanks, Hamad. It's great seeing you.
Day one, your policy goes into force. If it's a whole life policy, it's guaranteed it's going to happen. As long as you pay the premiums, the death benefit's going to pay. So you can purchase a guaranteed net worth
my
at a
goodness.
discount.
So
because
hold on, please. You got to let the third grader stop you or he'll lose everything here. You're saying if I bought $1 million policy today, that my net worth goes up by $1 million?
Well, it doesn't today, but you've guaranteed that to your family. Your legacy is locked in. Nobody can take that from you.
So if it's $1 million policy, then the only thing it adds to my net worth is whatever the cash value is until the death benefit.
Right.
Okay.
But I mean, that's the way.
You were about to tell me something.
No,
really
no. But that's the way that I looked at it, Jim, is when I put mine into place, I locked in my family's legacy. Like no matter how bad I mess up my other investments, you can't take this away.
Right. Yeah. You guarantee generational wealth.
Yeah. And to your point of, the winning or losing bet, right? And the actuarial science, the bottom line is whole life is always going to reward the policy owner. Always, 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 because there's more than enough term life policies out there that are going to expire worthless. There's more than enough on their balance sheet to be able to cover that. And I just can't picture a losing scenario with a whole life policy. It's just people feel like it is because they see it as an insurance expense, like you said. And so they just can't stomach putting in however many $100 a month. But the bottom line is, I mean, I've done the math 6 ways to Sunday. I've calculated scenarios for 20-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 60-year-olds. You cannot possibly lose. Now, the insurance company doesn't lose either, because if you put in $24,000 this year and they only give you access to half of it, they're investing the difference and they're getting arbitrage the whole way along. So, of course, they don't lose either.
It's a win-win-win.
But that's it. You can't lose either.
Yeah.
So, versus with term, on a mathematic argument with term, you lose almost every time mathematically.
Right.
Sleeping at night, it's important to know your family's taken care of.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I actually I had my first client who died actually January last month. My first client died, 56 years old. I sold him a $300,000 term policy 18 months ago. So he put in about $1,800 of money, and his wife now has $300,000 tax free. So I guess he wins. So every once in a while, there's a winning bet there.
Yeah.
But
so what happens there, Adam? How do you guys handle that from a standpoint of, do you just write her a $300,000 check, or do you say, hey, we need you to come in, let's talk about this, you're about to inherit $300,000, let's try to make sure this lasts?
That's happening right now.
Okay.
We're having those meetings right now about investing her in our strategic income fund, which is an actively traded fund. The guys in our office get together every week. And we have some pretty cool stuff on the investment side, which was not the purpose of the meeting today. But I'm going to tell you, our firm is so unique in that, what most wealth management firms do is, let's say you had money that you wanted us to manage, and you would open whatever brokerage account, right? And then we'd manage it for a fee, and we're shipping it off to somebody on the East Coast who's making the decisions with that money day to day, right? So you call one of us and we really can't tell you what's going on day to day. Our firm is not like that. We're an RIA. We actually have our own portfolios, and we have an investment committee of 5 guys that get together every Tuesday morning and are actively going over lists of securities and are incorporating active options contracts to protect the downside. So we're buying stocks and then matching it up with different puts and, we basically have figured out a way to increase the alpha or decrease the beta on different transactions to where we're going to always underperform the market for sure, because we're not taking the same level of risk as the market.
Right.
But we're also always going to protect the downside. So if the market drops 30, yours may only drop 10. And it's really cool what we've been able to do. We've got a fund called Strategic Income where they literally have the floor protected on it to where, you know, the downside is capped. Now the upside's capped too, but it's been averaging 8% this year. So we're going to take her probably we're going to take her $300,000 and plug it into that strategic income for 8%. Now she's got $25,000 a year, and I'm ballparking here, $25,000 a year of income, and she's not depleting her principal.
So how do you advise her? Let's say that he was working and making 50 grand a year.
And that's actually pretty close. Yep.
Okay. And he has a mortgage of $800 a month. And he still, he still has 15 years to pay on that mortgage. How do you try to say, look, we can give you so much cash flow off of this that'll cover your mortgage payment, so you're not going to lose the house, but it doesn't cover all of the income that he had for you, but it'll cover this much. And then is there any other additional strategies that you can put together, or is she just going to say, you know, we don't have to have a full 50 grand, but we cannot survive unless we have at least 35 of it?
That's right. So here is a classic case of, and I remember talking with this client 18 months ago, and he did good to put something in place because he didn't have anything in place. But we talked with him through this, and people severely underestimate their human life value. He's underinsured because of exactly what you just said. He did not leave her enough to perpetually replace his income. So his wife is going to have to adjust her lifestyle. And of course, he didn't think he was going to be gone this year. But the point is, people highly, highly underestimate their value to their family and what their income means. And most people are terribly underinsured. And so now here I am, the financial advisor, trying to pull a rabbit out of a hat for somebody when we don't have the resources to pull that rabbit.
Yeah.
So to directly answer your question, there is no magic trick I'm going to be able to pull. And we're going through the conversations of 300,000 is better than nothing, and you don't have to pay taxes on it. So how can we make the best use of this and minimally disrupt your lifestyle? Because you're going to have to make changes no matter what. I mean, she's getting a part-time job. It's happening.
Yeah.
There's no way around it.
Yeah.
But at least we can make good use of it. And at least there's a pile of tax-free money. But what you just said and this story, you know, I don't see myself primarily as a life insurance guy because, like you said, I see myself as helping people build wealth and use unique assets. And this is just one strategy. But when it comes to life insurance, that is a part of financial planning that's really important. And people hate thinking about when they're going to die, and nobody wants to think it's going to happen. But then it does. And here we are trying to pick up the pieces and do something with not enough money.
I love what you said. You can buy a guaranteed net worth. You can buy generational wealth.
Yes.
And you're not selling a death benefit. You're selling generational wealth.
Right.
I love that idea. I love that thought process.
Right.
Because you're right. People hate when I was young and I tried to do this, and everyone in my family, including the only one that I was really listening to, which was my wife, was like, you know, I don't want to talk about this. You know, I don't want to think about death. I don't want to, you know, I'm too young to be thinking about dying, you know, and people just don't want to think about it, you know, and they don't want to talk about it. It's a very uncomfortable topic. So if you can change that narrative, you know, I don't want to talk about it either. Let's talk about building generational wealth instead. So.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, Adam, I have taken way too much of your time, and I'm really, really grateful that you stayed on. I'm very grateful, and would love for you to come back sometime and talk about different topics. You know, if you want to talk about some of these other things that you guys are doing, or, you know, and build on top of this. If you've got a presentation or something you want to do, I'm open for it. Just let me know.
Thank you, Jim. Well, I wouldn't mind just visiting as a visitor too. So I appreciate it. This has been really good. I think there's going to be a couple folks that are going to want to talk with me after this. So thank you for that. It's probably grown my business. We'll see, but I enjoyed it.
do you, if you want to provide your slideshow, your pitch deck, I'll happily upload it onto my the GOB network platform.
Thank you for offering that. I actually don't want to, just because I think from a compliance and regulation standpoint, that subjects us to some risk that I don't want, because things change. Okay. And I don't want there being outdated facts out there. Sure. So I hope you don't take offense to that, but no, we're heavily regulated, and it's probably best that I not put my presentations out there.
Yeah, not a problem at all. So I only offered if I thought it would provide benefit for you. Okay. If it doesn't provide benefit and quite the opposite, exposes you, then yeah, absolutely, we don't want to do that. But so
thank you, sir.
On behalf of the GOB network platform, we want to say thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim. Have a great Sunday.
All right, Adam. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.